believe, enough people here. I'm going to call to order the Community Development and Housing Grant Commission meeting, January 17th at 8:31. Faith, could I have a roll call, please?
You sure can. Von Bergen.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Hausman.
Here.
Adamson.
Here.
Draftcorn.
Here.
Lamorte. Reining. Pietroso.
Here.
And Ms. Grammer.
Yes.
And we have a quorum.
How about more?
More. I have to get my updates on my roll call. Sorry. I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you for coming, everyone. I would like to welcome our new member, Alex, and it's Pietroso.
That was pretty good.
Good? Okay, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So next, could I get a motion to approve the minutes as presented for October 4th, 2023?
So moved. Second.
More, Mr. Smith. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carries. Next up, we've got public comments.
I didn't receive any.
Okay, seeing no public comments, we'll move on to old business. And Hans, I believe, has a presentation for us with updates and announcements.
Go ahead. All right, so where are we at, Hans? Is it in overdrive? Must be in the wrong spot here. Let's see.
Oh, it's under admin. Should go back. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, wait,
Under presentations.
under your presentation.
Yeah,
Okay.
then it should be right at the top there.
Okay.
Hey, death by PowerPoint as usual, right?
Yeah, let's see, where's the part where I get it to, this is where you guys see me not knowing how to do technology.
Slideshow,
There
yeah,
we go.
it's from beginning. There we go. All right, I'm going to see if this is going to work. All right, so today's meeting is all about housing. Just for the record, my name is Hans Mock, Community Development Administrator for McHenry County. We're going to go ahead and see. We're going to go ahead and see if our little clicker works. If not, then Faith will go ahead and just click it along. But today's meeting is all about housing funding. And so we're here to kind of talk about that, give an overview of that information, and let you know what you're working on today. All right, just an overview of our community development team, which has been up and down over the years. We've been as low as like 4 people, as high as like I think 13 or something at some point in time. But this is our current group of people. Faith Taylor's our senior CD specialist right here. Brandon Kiker is our CD specialist who works with the planning of the COC primarily. Joseph Davis is our staff who works as a planner for our division. Bianca Gonzalez, who's not present right now, works with our senior program. Michelle Applerson works with our lead and roofing program. Eric Sykon is all the way in the corner over there. He's our community development associate. Heidi Berardi is new to us. You may recognize her from working with non-for-profit resources. She's right over there. And then Tyler Butler is a part-time person who will be working with our environmental reviews this year. He's a student at Drake University. Next slide. All right, so we will be working off of an estimate for the home program today. So as you may have heard in the news, Congress has not passed the 2024 budget. I think I've said that every single year that I've worked here, and it's been 8 years. So they have not passed a budget. There were proposed flat funding for the home and CDBG programs through the Senate. I think the House is flat for CDBG and we want to go lower on the home program. So we don't have any serious estimate right now. We've received just over $700,000 in previous years here, the last couple of years, but we're going to estimate that much lower at $550,000 to be safe so that we're not over allocating funds. The budget was supposed to be approved by Congress by this Friday. They're on a continuing resolution, but they're probably gonna go to another one of those. In which case, our T-HUD bill, which we're part of, FUD, would go to March 1st if approved. And then we're still working on this funding, supposed to start on October 1st. So the more we move this along and not approve anything, the more compressed the time gets to get everything done. So it makes it challenging for everyone. So the estimate, as I mentioned, is $550,000. There are some funds that are remaining from prior years with the home program that are going to be swept and can be used earlier. So in other words, if the commission allocates those funds, they can be used earlier on, and they would be used in lieu of or in combination with the 2024 funds. So some projects could get up and running because we already have the funds accessible. And then, as I mentioned, since we don't know our budget, we can actually come in lower than our estimate of $550,000. So I think just to exercise some caution with using the home funds, you know, kind of keeping it tight or whatever would be a good idea there this year. So what is home? Home is, there's no acronym anymore for what that means. A lot of what you'll see with our programs is there's lots of acronyms, and I have to constantly make sure that I spell it out because otherwise I'm just saying we're talking in another foreign language all of a sudden. But HOME is the program that from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development that's used to develop and foster and maintain affordable housing throughout the United States. Units can be owner-occupied or rentals, so in other words, it can be used for home buyer programs, rental programs. Some common programs or projects that this group has recommended for funding have been home buyer programs. That's usually your Habitat for Humanity. Rental housing developments, so those are big developments. They could be smaller too, like scattered site acquisition and rehab, that's 1 unit at a time, or 2 units, coupled smaller units where they acquire a building usually. And then tenant-based rental assistance. That's something we did not get an application for this year, so there's nothing to consider for that this time. All right, there's another thing going on then. So there's the Treasury funds, which is Emergency Rental Assistance Part 2. And according to the statute that was developed for that, this funding came out March 11th of 2021, so going on almost 3 years now. And then the funds came out sometime after that. But the second allocation we received was $7.2 million. We were allowed to use up to 25% of that fund for affordable housing, provided that we met certain benchmarks along the way. So we're estimating that we have about $1.65 million that's available right now for that. That's actually in the bank across the street, the Treasurer's office. So, so those funds are available to us. And the $1.65 million can be used for, it follows along with the home program, but you're going to see certain limitations on it. The limitations are you can't acquire property or land, and they're at 50% of area median income, so it cuts that down what you can do with it a little bit. This is a required disclosure that we are grant number ERA E0034 awarded to McHenry County by the United States Department of the Treasury. All right, so we were required, as I mentioned, to pair this funding up to another federal program. We selected the home program because it's affordable housing. So it follows along with that program with a few of those exceptions, as I mentioned. All right, so what's the difference between home and this workforce housing initiative, this ERA funding? Well, okay, the ERA funding is going to automatically be a 20-year period of affordability, no matter what, if you rehab or whatever. So under home, if you put very small amounts in, you actually could be as low as 5 years. So this is automatically 20. That's done through a rate and lien. The subsidy amount per unit, as I mentioned, is not factored in because it's automatically 20 years. Income limit is 50% of area median income, and a secondary method is that the clients can not pay more than 30% of their income, monthly income, for their rent. Can only be used for rental units, so there's no home buyer programs attached to this one. And you could tie it to a portion of the project. So for example, if you had a 50 unit, construction, you could only tie it to a few if you wanted to do that. As I mentioned, the acquisition not eligible under this program. So we don't have any applications that have acquisition in it. Next slide. All right, so the target obligation, this has moved ahead over the course of time as we worked with the Treasury to develop this. So our target allocation, obviously you would be making funding considerations today. County board would be approving that in February. The statutory obligation is September 30th of 2025, and as you can see, we have all that time, but we want to make sure that we get the projects funded early, they get constructed or whatever needs to happen and get completed by the end of this, end of 2025, so that we can have final spending by January 28th of 2026. So this looks a lot like county ARPA funds. Next slide. So just to give you an idea what area median income is, because you hear this term all the time, and it's like, what does that mean? Well, so for one person, that could be a household income of up to $38,650. That's McHenry County's rate. So if you go to other parts of the country, you may see a much lower number for that, if their cost of living is lower there. So as you can see, like a 4-person household is going to be something like $55,000 a year for, you know, that's the max of income that they could have to participate in the program. Next slide. All right, so some sample projects. So if you have land already, you can build something on it. It's construction. Rehab of existing rental housing is eligible. So if it's affordable housing now, or will become affordable housing as part of the process, it's eligible for that use. You can rehab a municipal building. So if you had an unused school, for example, that would be a project that would be eligible. And then site clearance. So if you own the land already, you could install utilities and clear the site so that you could prep it for affordable housing. And so what we allowed the applicants to do was to come in either with a grant, a loan, or a combination thereof. And there's some scoring factors that were associated with that. So they got bonus points if they came in as a loan. And you'll see on the next couple of pages what we did with that. The commission will decide, we said to decide on the methodology, I already did that, but you'll decide on the grants today. So that's what we're doing today. And then we created it, this is what you do when you reuse your slides and didn't quite tweak it enough. But there was an instruction manual, plenty of materials that were available online to applicants to understand what the program was all about. So we spent a real lot of time pulling that all together for the applicants. So the scoring ends up being a 100-point scale with 50 points coming from this group. The other 50 points were some objective measures. This group is really going to be looking at asking their questions that they have of the applicants to determine how they would score it. The point of it would be to take up to the 50 points. So say one of you says, I like it, you're getting all 50 points. And one of you says, I'm gonna give me a 5. We're gonna average all of those out among everyone that's here today, and that's the second half of the score. Bonus points are allowed for loans. You did not get any loan or hybrid or proportionate thing like that. They're all requested as grants. The number of units delivered was affected too. So you'll see that in the materials that you have. You'll look at some things that you can ask questions about. So what are some of the amenities? What kind of transportation is available? Who does this serve? This is a very vulnerable population, for example, very low income, that kind of a thing. And then we're looking at the level of funding relative to the total amount. So if there's some cash coming into the project, is really something that we looked at there, where we know that there's going to be funds available in case there's an overage of costs or something like that associated with the project. All right, so what we looked at way back when we were considering the scoring is we ended up deciding on the left-hand side, the priority ranking. Some of the other factors that we were going to look at here, I think the group felt like the priority ranking looked a lot like our continuing care program, something that we already did. So the idea would be to rank the projects and then make the decision as to whether or not you want to fund them. So what I will say here too is that if the commission decides not to fund anything, you can do that and we can send it back out for funding notice and start over again. So we have a little bit of time to do that compared to like normally when we're developing an annual action plan or something like that. All right, so the left-hand side was the chosen method for scoring. You can see some of the other factors that were put into there. So there was an underwriting. We looked at pro forma over the long course of time for that measure and whether it would look realistic over that 20-year time frame. The financial capacity, if it was a nonprofit organization, we have a eight-point measure that we developed in 2017 that we used to measure the health of an agency that was used for that score. So for example, if they got 50% on that, they would get 5 points there. The number of units delivered based on the overall total.
We updated that to 15 for financial,
Okay,
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Thanks for reminding me. 15% for financial capacity, 10% for the other one.
for the underwriting.
For underwriting. So again, we still multiply that out. If it's a housing authority, we get their housing authority PHA score online from HUD. And then we were looking at the total number of units delivered based on the overall proposed. So if it was like 100% that we were getting out of it, then that would be most points. And then the level of funding proposed versus already attained. So we were looking at like they were putting cash toward the project. And then some other bonus things that we were looking at is the shovel ready. So this is something that the group is considering. These are questions to ask the applicants. And then loans, we did not get any requests as loans, so that's a moot point there. All right, so I'm gonna go into another couple of other things and try to go through these pretty quick because this is not related to the housing anymore. So we talked about the annual action plan and how to reduce the number of applications that had to be reviewed by this group. It was getting onerous with so many coming in. And so we limited it to 2 proposals per organization. So whether they were a municipality or a nonprofit organization, that was the biggest thing that we did to affect the number that came in. The applicants for both home and CDBG had until January 4th to submit applications. So this is a pretty quick turnaround with the home funds. They had until, I think it was the 28th of December to submit their treasury applications. So this is, all of these home and housing things that you're reviewing today were very recently turned in. Some of the things that we'll be looking at our next meeting in March are going to be related to the Community Development Block Grant Program. There are some COVID funds remaining. We're continually getting some of that swept back. So as they get swept back, you can allocate them back out until we spend it all. We're probably at about 88% spend down on that grant, and we have about 3 more years to spend it. So we're going at a pretty good clip on that. I think we'll be done before 6 years. All right, I did want to talk about this. We brought this up last time. It's the Section 108 CDBG loan program. And so the commission agreed that they wanted to have this as a tool to allow for economic development or other types of projects that can come forward. And what it is HUD allows you to borrow up to 5 times your annual allocation of CDBGs. So for us, that would be around $7-8 million. And it can ensure larger scale projects can get up and running. And then, obviously, there'd be some negotiations as to how that's paid back by the applicant and that kind of a thing. And it's up to 20 years is allowed for repayment. So HUD, I've been talking a lot about the HUD reauthorization of CDBG, and that's actually starting to happen. Ball's rolling finally, and I've been talking about that for about 5 years. And so the rule changes have all been posted last week. I think it was on the 11th, and we're working with our trade organizations, NASED, National Association for County and Community and Economic Development, working with them as part of a group to work on the proposed rules. There are quite a bit of things that HUD would like to change with the CDBG program, and so we're encouraging that some funds come along with that. But that one of the big changes that's proposed here, actually related to this is why I left the slide in, is they don't want the applications going to our field office in Chicago anymore. They want them to go nationally to DC. So anybody that applies for this program would come here to this group and all that first. But then once an application is compiled and determined to be approved by our county board, it would not go to the city, it would go to DC, which I think would be better. Then the next one. So we talked about this last summer. YIMBY, or Yes in My Backyard, is now called Pro Housing. And what it is community development block grant funds for planning to review ordinances and requirements of communities that may be maybe deterring housing from being development. And I can think of like accessory dwelling units being an example of that. So if it's a larger plot of land and they want to put like maybe a small apartment in the back like you see in other urban areas, that would be something that they would be looking at, examining local ordinances for that. And then great for encouraging infill. So the PHCS committee allowed us to apply, and we worked with CMAP to be one of their applicants as part of a collaborative project. The decisions on this pro housing as a collaboration with CMAP is supposed to happen either this month or next. And there's planning and implementation funds. So basically what that means is more CDBG funds just related to this particular program. And that would be something kind of a longer lasting project if funded. All right, and then more of an FYI with ERA2. So ERA2 was really meant for rental assistance over time. Predominantly our housing authority was our main conduit for issuing funds out. They work with other organizations like Home the Sparrow and Consumer Credit to facilitate the use of those funds. So when you hear about this ERA2 and it says rental assistance, well, a lot of it was used for rental assistance. The portion you're talking about today was housing. But one of the things that we've also done over the course of time is issue funds out for services between different organizations. And so right now we have organizations that you have recommended for funding, Consumer Credit, Home the Sparrow, and Pioneer Center are the organizations working with our both Browns 2C and 2B to facilitate use of those funds and to assist people with preventing homelessness, or if they become homeless, assisting them with getting rehoused. And so we have 2 current rental assistance programs that also were funded and approved by the county board. Those are very small programs compared to the big ones that we've done. This has been a $16 million effort between 2 different rounds. But currently, Consumer Credit and Home the Sparrow are working still on rental assistance program, although that's waning out right now. And then what's going to fill the gap? Well, we have the Community Services Block Grant that's at the Housing Authority. The Department of Human Services has issued a lot of rapid rehousing shelter diversion funds this year through the COC, Continuum of Care. And then we have the Emergency Solutions Grant, which can assist individuals with rapid rehousing and prevention of homelessness. All right, and that's all I have for the presentation. I did want to point out, as part of that whole working with our NASED organization about that CDBG reauthorization, we had a snow day on Friday. I just stayed there and kept working at home and went through every single thing that was proposed as a change and what our thoughts are on what those changes are. In some cases, we didn't really have an opinion on it, but like I can think of an example, like one of the proposed changes was that if HUD said it's a not disapproved plan, which means it's an approved plan, that they would, if there was still like an ineligible activity listed in there, that they would not take the accountability. So it's certainly one of the things that I would object to if you approve a plan and you're approving everything in there as eligible. So it's just a couple of examples of things that are in there, but also some recommendations that they allow an increase in the public service level if the community chooses to do so. That's capped at 15% for CDBG. We have quite a bit of information in there. I think we could just probably send that out to the group later to take a look at. It'd be onerous to go through like every little regulatory thing and like what our recommendation or thoughts are on that. We'll be working with that trade organization, NASED, on that, and they'll be formulating a response on behalf of their whole organization. I'm sure there are lots of other organizations nationally, counties, cities, et cetera, that have a lot to say about it. So I'll keep you posted on that. Probably hear more about it at the March meeting. Anything else or questions?
We just passed out the ranking form for you to use. And I don't know if you want to just kind of take a look through it, put in the comments either underwriting, financial leverage, or number of units. You can see where your questioning would be and align with that presentation. And then there's some bonus for you as well in there. So if you wanted to take a couple minutes to look at the description and the category. Notice if you had any questions about that or the presentation.
Anybody have any questions on the ranking worksheet? Maybe as we move through it, yeah.
Yeah, I think
as we go through it a little bit. This is sort of new and maybe some explanation needed for me.
Okay, thank you, Hans, for the presentation. So the next item is Home of the Sparrow and their request to change accomplishments for program years 22 and 23 home funds. So in the packet, there was a letter from Home of the Sparrow.
Do you want to have them come up, or?
Yeah, why don't we have them come up?
Sit down, I'm on.
Everybody, good morning.
Yeah, I'm going to use my
So do you want to take a?
I can take you through it a little
Take us
bit.
through it and.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure. So good morning, everybody. Long time no see. Again, my name's Kristen Miller. I'm the grants manager at Home of the Sparrow.
I'm Max Stecky, Executive Director of Home of the Sparrow. Good morning, everybody.
And a lot changes in a year, as we all know. So what we're coming to you today regarding our program year 2023 Home and CDBG Awards has to do with, if you recall, the application we had put in last year for home funds in which we were asking for a 4-unit building that was located in Marengo. Basically what the letter that you may have received outlines for you is all of a year's worth of work that went into trying to acquire the property. As we had mentioned when we came to apply, we were fairly confident at the time we would be able to secure the property and that our issues, any issues with property would be able to be dealt with. But we always know that with real estate, things come up that we're just not aware of. We had been pretty transparent that we hadn't done an inspection on the property yet. And that's kind of where things started to get a little bit sidetracked. So what ended up happening, we did do our due diligence. We went through and had an inspection done on the property in June. And unfortunately, that inspection revealed that there were some major renovations that were going to be required to a back deck that was not up to code with the city of Marengo, and also to the roof of this building. The roof, we actually got another inspection done in July just to confirm this with an actual roofer because we wanted to be absolutely sure that it was an issue, and they confirmed that it was, and they estimated that the work was going to be about $42,000 just to do the roof itself. When we brought this to the attention of the seller, we also brought this to the attention of community development at a meeting we had with them to do a whole bunch of monitoring and all different kinds of discussions in July. We kind of all came to the consensus that this might be a pretty big stumbling block for HUD to end up approving the project because this is such a major system, it's integral to the building, and that's a very large cost to put up front with the limited funds that were available to also then go forward and purchase the building. The seller also decided that based on other interests he had received in the community that he wanted to up the price of the building from what he had initially told us and was requesting $475,000. So you can imagine between that, we're looking at $42,000 for the roof. We're looking at who knows what for the deck. We hadn't even addressed that at that point. Things were starting to look a little interesting. We needed to get some more information. The last piece of it that was a bit of a sticking point for the seller was the fact that the building was occupied. Now, we knew this, Home of the Sparrow did, at the time that we came to you with the request to get the funds. And what we were told by the sellers that each tenant was on a month-to-month lease and that they could either be exited from the building prior to acquisition or that more than likely the majority of those residents were low income and would fit the under 65% AMI that we were requesting and would not actually need to be relocated at all, but instead would just become part of Home of the Sparrow's program. What community development had told us is that we needed to acquire copies of the lease from the seller, as well as any information we could get without invading too much privacy regarding those tenants' current economic situation to, again, ensure that we weren't going to be triggering the Uniform Relocation Act, which would have just been, I think, a mess for CD, for us, for HUD, for everybody. The seller, unfortunately, became very antagonistic about this and did not want to provide it. I talked with him several times on the phone, emailed. He basically told me he wasn't comfortable giving that information to me, and I said, well, you're not really giving it to me, you have to give it to the county. This is how we have to do this in order to purchase your property. And then he also threw me a curveball of wanting to put another person in the unit who was a college student who I did confirm would meet the requirements of the program. However, you know, we're just kind of getting things a little bit more complicated. Finally, the seller actually reached out to Debbie, who, as many of you know, is no longer able to be with Home of the Sparrow due to some health issues that she's had. But he reached out to her, even though at the time she was no longer employed with us. He had kind of formed a really good rapport with her and basically told her he wasn't going to sell to anybody, Home of the Sparrow or otherwise. He had talked to his financial advisor. His financial advisor said, don't do it for tax reasons in 2023. And he just didn't really want to sell it at all, so he was pulling it from consideration. At this point, Home of the Sparrow, we kind of internally then had to make a decision of whether we were going to wait him out and see if he was reopened to selling the property in 2024. Again, now knowing what we knew about the tenants, about the roof, and about everything else, or if we would pivot and look for additional properties to integrate into our affordable housing program. Ultimately, as a staff, we decided that would be the safer route, would be to try to pivot and find alternate sites, just so that we can ensure that we have decent, affordable housing with, you know, not having to go through relocation or major systems upgrades and things like that. So we've been working with, we had worked with one realtor and did actually acquire one property with our program year 2021 home funds, which were needed to be used. So we acquired a property at 441 Dietz in Marengo. It's a beautiful 3-bedroom single-family home. It was newly built in 2021. It fulfilled the spirit of what we were trying to do, which is expand our affordable housing into our more rural and underserved areas in McHenry County. And that property is actually set to be inhabited by clients this month, so we're very excited about that. But that does leave us then with our program year 2022 and 2023 funds, which I was informed are in the resolution that was drafted and approved by county board tied to that 4-unit building. So what we're coming to request is that the commission would consider allowing us to pivot that 2022 and 2023 funding to scattered site acquisition, generally speaking. We are confident that we can acquire at least 2 to 3 units of affordable housing. I have a realtor who actually we're looking at a lot of options to do more of like a multifamily housing or do several smaller like apartments or condos. We feel very confident we can squeeze 2 to 3 units out of this remaining funding. They will still be serving the same clientele, under 65% AMI, with a preference for families, a preference for people who've experienced homelessness. And we believe that those would serve, again, 3 to 8 individuals at any given time, just depending on family size and composition with HUD's regulations on sharing bedrooms and things like that. So it's actually, as you'll see in the outline that I gave in the letter, it's not terribly different, a little bit less in terms of the number of units, but in terms of the number of individuals served, we anticipate meeting about where we were targeted to with the 4-unit building. The 4-unit building was comprised of 2 1-bedroom and 2 2-bedroom units. So again, we were a little bit limited there with seeing how we did with Dietz, that we could get a 3-bedroom, and it's a pretty large 3-bedroom, so we actually think we can squeeze a larger family in there, which is great, or not squeeze them in, put them in comfortably, really. And actually that property as well is accessible, it's ADA compliant, so we can put in a multi-generational family. It gives us a lot of options. So again, we're coming to you to ask that you'd consider amending our agreement for our program year 2022 and 2023 CDBG and home funds to allow us to pursue scattered site acquisition just kind of anywhere not tied to the 4-unit building. I will add that we are committed to still serving the more rural parts of our county, so we are still targeting Marengo, Harvard, some of those areas in the western half of our county. We want to stick to the spirit of what we came in to apply for. And given how quickly we pivoted to Dietz, where we knew at the end of August that we weren't getting the 4-unit, we were able to close on Dietz in mid-November. We're confident that should you choose to allow us to pivot this, we can make this spend down of funds expedient, efficient, and again, still trying to fulfill to the best of our ability the spirit of what we came to you with. So that's my plea and my pitch.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Mr. Smith?
Sure, so it was 475,000, right?
Correct, is what the seller was asking us for.
We had it tied to the 4-unit building.
That's
So
correct.
if we amend this for the scattered site, do we have any approval over what you buy? Or, I mean, is it gonna come back to us that, okay, we're gonna spend 200 for this and
Sure.
250 for that? And then that would have to be approved, or once we give them this amendment, they're free to use it as whatever to that amount?
That's your decision. At this point, you've decided that they could spend it on a 4-unit, and they have a 1-unit with 2021 money. I'm not clear, given your presentation, if you still want to use 22 to pay for part of Dietz.
Ideally, we could, but we were able to cover it with restricted funds, so I would leave that to the commission to decide. I mean, we can, again, we can pivot it to be included as part of, in full, towards acquisition of more units, or it can cover the balance that we did pay on Dietz.
Okay.
And
So
what
the
was what's
initial-
the balance?
The initial, I think, what's it, 265?
Yep, so we used $117,097.99 for the purchase of Dietz, which Dietz was purchased at 200, I believe it was 246 was our purchase price.
And that was the 21.
So we took $129,375 out of restricted funds that we had available to us at Home of the Sparrow to close that gap and complete the purchase of Dietz. One thing I had discussed with Faith was the possibility of taking a portion of our program year 2022 funds, which the total on that is $165,950. Taking that $129,375 out of program year 2022, and then applying the balance of program year 2022, which would be $36,575, added to program year 2023 home CDBG. And there was also a $50,000 CDBG CV, I believe, tied into this as well, which would give us $332,484.90 to put towards scattered site acquisition. Or if we choose to put, if the commission were to choose to put program year 2022 in full towards scattered site acquisition, it would obviously increase that by $129,375. So that would be roughly $450,000+ that we could put towards scattered site acquisition. That's a lot of numbers and a lot of math. And I'm an English major, so I feel it.
I could just.
I feel you. If your head is spinning, my head was spinning too.
I could just say that we asked them to make an official notice to you asking, because if they were to use the 22 funding, the majority of that to recoup the restricted funds, they only had half of what they would have initially intended to use, 22 and 23, to buy the 4-unit. It didn't look like it would be possible they could get 3 more units out of it. Maybe 1, if it was a single family, I thought. So we asked that they come to you and ask if they could reduce their number of units, because you voted on that based on the 4-unit. We wanted you to be able to make the decision if you wanted to allow it.
I guess I would think it would be okay to reduce the number of units, but I feel like we ought to see it again then.
Yeah.
Make the decision on that particular purchase, no matter how many units it is.
Okay. So in that case, how that would work would be, you're going to be looking for a property, and when you have it, we're gonna need to present it.
Okay.
We could probably do that during the time where we would do an environmental, and you're normally telling the seller that you have to wait for that to clear
Sure.
anyway.
Absolutely.
The thing might be tricky about that is we might need to do kind of a quick special meeting, the timing in which it would align with your regular meetings could be potentially the issue there. I mean, if that's, we could do that. I mean, that's okay if everybody's agreeing to
Personally, I
that.
was just speaking from our side of it, I understand Commissioner Smith's concern, so I'm absolutely willing to, Home to Sparrow's willing to be flexible and make it work for the best of, if you guys want to see it, we can make that work. We know how to kind of negotiate with our sellers, and when we're dealing in federal funds, that there are a little bit more hoops to jump through. And if this is just one we have to add in, we're certainly willing to do that, and can appreciate the concern that you would have as the commission to do that, so happy to do that.
Agreed. I have a question,
Okay.
Tracy. Do you anticipate that this would be one housing unit that you'd be looking at, two?
We've looked at a couple of we've explored some different options. We've looked at just cursory kind of exploratory what's on the market and what could be an option with this available, kind of what we anticipated to be the funding available to us. It could go either way. We could definitely do several smaller units. Again, scattered site, so maybe 2 condos or 2 apartments, something like that. What we have also explored with one realtor that I'm personally very intrigued by is the notion of purchasing a larger single-family home and doing some of the renovation inside to split it and make it a multifamily. Of course, assuming it's zoned correctly, and we would go through any zoning changes that would need to happen. But that's also a possibility where you could potentially acquire a larger property and then put some of the extra into renovating it to create a multifamily property in one location. So we're open to doing whatever is the most expedient, efficient, makes the most sense for the commission to spend the funds and is going to benefit ultimately the community. I can tell you that our AHP, Affordable Housing Program wait list right now is very long. It's about 80 families deep. And that ranges from large families to singles. So we have need for all types of property and all sizes. So from the Home of the Sparrow perspective, whatever we go out to purchase, we can fill the need. I think it's just going to be weighing out what's the best use of this funding and what's going to make the most sense to get it spent, get it, up and running as fast as possible too. I think we can all agree that just given the lack of affordable housing in the county, things that we can get up and running and put people into right now as opposed to dragging it out for months or years is ideal. And that's definitely something we'll be looking at. So I'm sorry if that's kind of a answer to your question, but we're open to whatever is going to make the most sense.
Confirms, Larry's suggestion.
Yes,
Since
absolutely.
there's no specific plan, we would want to see what.
Absolutely.
he's come up with.
Yeah, and probably like the reno, and like as intriguing as that is,
I agree.
the timeline, if we're dealing with families that could.
I agree.
Evelyn, you said 80 deep, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it could take like upwards of 6 months to get your
I agree.
zoning.
And to be honest with you, I told our realtor when he was he was getting really excited about it, and I was like, well, I just got burned on a $42,000 roof. I don't know if I want to go rip open a giant property and find $50,000 worth of mold or something. That's not going to work out. So I think we'd be looking to go more toward the direction of how we did deeds, where that was an ideal property. It was fairly new, again, rebuilt in 2021. Not saying we're going to find something that amazing. I would hope. We will certainly always look. But the nice thing too is that, again, targeting that western half of the county, we do get more bang for our buck, so to speak. I mean, not to put that in a crass term, but housing prices are lower in that area. So I do feel that we can stretch the money that we have into more units if we focus on that area, and that's really mutually beneficial. It's beneficial for us that we can add more units, but it's beneficial to those areas that are right now underserved with controlled affordable housing for low-income families.
I get,
Okay.
on the restricted funds, you use some of the restricted funds for the purchase in the 2021 purchase.
We did.
Why are they restricted? What's restricted about them? Do they need to be paid back into that restricted fund and at some time frame, or what are the?
No, that's a great question. They are restricted for the purchase of housing, so we definitely fulfilled the use. It was a private donor who has set up a fund with us where she has put a substantial sum of money in for the purchase of housing, should we need it. So that was ideal that we tapped into that. We did approach the donor, showed her the home before we went through with the purchase. She was very happy with it. So it does not necessarily need to be paid back. You know, it was just something we had discussed with Faith as an option, you know, for this, for the purchase. But no, do we have to pay it back? No. The donor was comfortable giving the money for the purchase of deeds. So if that's where we leave it, that's where we leave it. And we'll be okay with that.
So is there more, a fund balance in those restricted funds?
There is still a balance remaining, yes. So there is
Stays there.
still funding available in that restricted account for additional housing needs.
So I see that sort of as an emergency hit. If you got something that's really good to buy and you have these restricted
Correct.
funds from the donor.
Correct,
You
or
can
for
hit
things
that.
that CDBG or home couldn't cover for us for some reason, if there was something catastrophic. Or her particular restricted fund could also be used for the purchase of housing that isn't eligible under any federal or state grants. So things like for our supportive housing program. The purchase of housing, you know, if we wanted to open another shelter or do shelter renovations, something like that. That would also be applicable under what she set as the parameters of her restricted fund. So it's a little bit more flexible for us as an agency. But yes, in this case, we kind of used it as an emergency housing fund that in order to get this particular purchase across the finish line. And obviously the donor saw the value in the home as much as we did.
I guess as long as it's good with the donor, I don't see any reason to say that we have to pay that back right now out of these
Absolutely.
other funds. If we can get more units with these other funds as opposed to paying that back, right? That would be the idea.
Ultimately, I'll defer to you,
absolutely.
Matt. That's more
Yeah.
your decision than
Fine
mine.
with that.
I agree with Larry.
I got a question, just to confirm this pivot, you are looking to serve the same number of families if possible?
Absolutely.
That's the goal, okay.
Yeah, if not the same number of families, at least the same number of individuals, again. So we would be looking at either more smaller units that are serving smaller families, or again, maybe fewer larger units that are serving larger families. So ultimately, I think we're gonna hit, as the table shows, we're gonna hit pretty close to the targets of what we anticipated in the original grant, yes.
Do you guys have figures on the sizes of families that you have housed right now? Is it primarily
Yeah.
larger families, primarily singles? What is the,
Runs the entire gamut. So right now we have 26 units that are operational throughout the county, and those range from 1-bedroom condominiums to 3-bedroom houses. So we're looking at family sizes. I think our largest family right now is about 7 with a mom and I think it's mom, grandma, and a couple of kids.
and compared to the applications that you have,
Mhm.
what do you see as the biggest demand, family size wise?
I would say, our wait list is very large, so it's, we're seeing kind of everybody. I will say from the program side of things, the fastest and the easiest to place are singles or small families, mom with 1 kiddo, mom with 2 kiddos, just because logistically, it's a little bit easier for them to move, especially if they're relocating from, a community. If let's just say they're currently living with family in Cary and we have a housing unit available in Woodstock. It's a little bit easier for a single person or a mom with fewer children to pick up and make that move than it is for a larger family, especially if they have school-age children or things like that. So in terms of expedience, those smaller units and smaller family sizes are a little bit quicker.
You can get down that list faster?
Correct, yeah. So again, that's something that we'd be evaluating as we go forward with looking at what sites and what kinds of sites we're gonna be looking at, is it'll be in conjunction with our programs team as well to look at our wait list. I actually have on our housing search team It's currently me, our property manager, and I do have a member of our program services, our housing manager is on that committee as well. She comes out with me to tour any potential sites, to review listings, because her input obviously is very valuable because she knows what our clients are looking for, what they need. If there are any concerns that I might not be aware of as someone who's not a direct service personnel. So I would definitely be bringing her into this discussion as well to see what can we fill, what's the biggest need at the moment that we're looking.
So our other option, if we didn't say this was okay to do that, the 475 would go back into the home program and be reallocated, or what happens to that
Sure.
one? We say no.
You could say that you didn't want to fund it at all, you want to take that back and reallocate it.
Okay.
You get that choice.
Okay, well, I guess I'll say that I'm comfortable with, as long as we look at whatever it's gonna be used for at a future date, that I'm comfortable doing that. I don't know how that has to be done officially, but.
Yeah.
So do we have a consensus then for Home of the Sparrow? To look for other units and come back to us when perhaps they find something, and this would be for the 2023 funds,
22 and 23.
22 and 23. Okay, Marty? did
Yeah, I don't
you-
have an issue. The only thing is, if we say, yeah, I do scattered housing, and you find the perfect 4-unit, do we have to undo what we just did?
No, that would be exceeding the accomplishments, and that's wonderful.
Oh, and trust me, we'd be looking.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we
So it's all kind of in the same bucket.
don't have to undo what we
Yeah.
just did. And then,
Understood, yeah.
my other question, do we have to take any action to undo the resolution that the board approved?
I think that we probably will, and maybe we'll write it in with the hearings today, those outcomes that we're going to just, modify it to take off the specificity of the 4-unit in Marengo and change it to scattered site. And then I'm not sure, we'll maybe have to discuss whether we want to put anything in there about the language regarding that this commission will, want to see that site and want to approve the number of units in the site. Maybe we'll put some language in there for that as well. We'll wordsmith it.
I think it could be either or, single family or multifamily, something like that.
Yeah.
Do we need to take a vote on that? I mean, we're not reallocating, so
Not
we just
new
have a
funding,
general
right.
consensus right now, and when they come back, do an official.
So, yeah.
More or less the
That's me.
resolution changes because our auditor is going to ask us for the resolution that authorizes the expenditure. And if it says Marengo and it's not, we're going to need to make sure that we just kind of change it to the scattered site. So we'll be putting it in a resolution, but because it's not additional money, I don't think that we need to do.
I'll go along with that.
I'm good.
I was thinking we've had a resolution to start with, maybe we should have a new one, but if you're good with it, I'm good with it, so.
Okay.
Thank you very
Well,
much.
thank you for
Thank
coming
you
in.
guys very much,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
I was a little confused from the get-go. Okay, so moving on to new business. We've got the ERA to workforce housing hearings. Hans, do you have anything before we get started?
No, so the only thing I'll mention actually is you do have 2 that are coming in for workforce housing. We actually have less requests than we have funds, which is unusual. But the one for the housing authority, they have applied under both home as sort of a fail-safe for just the roof. And they have applied under ERA 2 for the entire project, including the roof. So you'll be hearing that one first. If the commission decides that they would like that entire project funded for the housing authority, then it doesn't have to be considered under the home program. It would be something at that point. So that's the caveat for what Kim Albrecht is about to present when she comes back here.
Okay. Well, if someone from Green Trees would like to come up and just give us an explanation of what you are looking for, and
I'm just going to load up her presentation.
Good morning. Thank you very
morning.
much for giving us this opportunity to come before you. Again, my name is Kim Alberg. I'm the Executive Director for the Henry County Housing Authority. So the Housing Authority has been, some of you I know have heard this spiel before, know who we are, but some of you I don't recognize, and maybe you haven't heard it. We've been in the county serving low-income county residents for 77 years. We're a housing authority, which is the typical housing authority that you think of. We have Section 8 voucher program, and we have a very small public housing program. We're also a community action agency, so that provides us with other programs, which range anywhere between all the programs, 15 to 17 every year we have. Those are our LIHEAP programs, which help people with their emergency utility assistance for gas and for electric. Sometimes we have water, we have weatherization, we have our CSVG grant, which helps with emergency rental assistance and security deposits. So basically, our mission is to provide housing for very low income residents and provide wraparound services to keep them housed or to help them through a crisis situation. And I am here to talk to you about our Green Trees.
I'm so sorry that I can't get this, I don't know where the remote went, it fell asleep on us, and I think IT might have it, so.
Okay.
I apologize that this is not presenting right now. Let me just see if I can get a hold of Greg.
If you unplug the HDMI and plug it back in, we'll turn it on.
I just had it unplugged and plugged it back
okay.
in, but let's try it, because you know what? Sometimes when I do things, it doesn't work, and then somebody says to do it, and I do it again, and it works.
They come and do it for you, and then all of a sudden
You're like,
then
"I
it
just
works.
did
It happens
that."
to me all the time. I think it might be me. I've had trouble a couple of times with my presentations. I see it here, so it's working.
Yeah, I know, it's like she can't see it.
Okay, if you can't find it, I probably
know.
have a remote in my van.
Well, I think IT
new?
is setting up for several meetings
bionic?
today, and so it might be in the other room, and I think they're gonna look there.
To get an MRI yesterday for his knee.
That's
I got this one for Christmas.
I'm just stuck now.
I'll just go ahead and continue, and then if it catches up with us, great.
Does that touch panel turn on?
You know, they don't allow us to
Really?
use that.
I installed those systems, so I just figured that's the way it should be.
I'll email Greg, but Kim has said that she'd, continue on if you guys want.
So I'm here to talk to you about our Green Trees development in Huntley. So it is 56 units that serves very low income seniors, 62 and older, and people with disabilities. It is about 40 years old, and it is a rural development budget.
Here, you can use this if you want, so at least you
Sure.
can see where
I'm
you're at.
supposed to be.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I've got through that. So we have, they're all 1 bedrooms, and the rent is $440 a month. We have 28 of those units receive rental assistance from rural development, meaning that they can't afford that $440, so rural development assists them with that rent. 5 tenants are using housing choice vouchers there to help pay that $440. It's $680, and then with the utility allowance, it's all electric. That rent becomes $440. So that is how that works. So it is an extremely low rent for that development. We are coming to you for ERA2, for roof replacement and gutters, for cement work. We have sidewalks and patios that are in desperate need of some rehabilitation, and some of them just can be repaired, others need to be completely repaired, and then some painting on the buildings. The staff, and there is pictures here, and I think you should have those in your packet of, we've done expanders, we've done patches, we have replaced the roofs in the 40 years, but now it's time to do it again. We certainly have painted, but it's just an aging development. With the rents so low, it makes it very difficult to keep up with the major capital projects that we have. I'll tell you a little bit about how this development works. We have a very tight budget. We put money into reserves, which we do have money to help do that match, which is going towards landscaping, which is also needed there. One is there's several trees, large trees that are hanging over roofs. Some of them need to come down, they're dead and or beyond their useful life. Some of them need to be trimmed. We would need to get that done. We wouldn't want to damage new roofs once they get up there. And then the general perimeter of the property and inside has a lot of landscaping that is very difficult for us to maintain. We have a landscaping company that does our mowing and fertilizes and that, but they do not do the trimming and all of that for us because the development just can't afford it. We have 2 maintenance staff at the Housing Authority, and they work on green trees on Tuesdays. They work all developments, so they're there 1 day a week. They do Silver Trees, which is our other rural development. They do Renaissance, and we have 22 scattered site public housing. So their time is limited. They come in the spring and they'll get through that landscaping. They'll do a quick trim, try to get rid of everything, and it grows so fast. We need really smaller, condensed landscaping that's easy to maintain. Because remember, they're there just 1 day a week. So they have to be taking care of any emergencies that they would take care of no matter what, but at any time. But you know, anything that needs to be fixed in a tenant's unit, turnovers. That's the other priority for them, is to get the units ready for turnover. So there's a very limited time to do that. So that is something that we would use is towards our match to try to get that done and try to make the outside of the units look much better and update them. Which is desperately needed. And then I have pictures of the roofs. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how our funding works, and so you can kind of understand it. I have a picture of some silos, which I got teased by my staff because it looks like it's all farm and all that, but it's the easiest way to describe. So we have our green trees budget here. And it's basically, what supplies that budget is our rents, and we get supplemental rental assistance from rural development, and that is really it. That's that funding. We have our Section 8 funding over here and our public housing funding over here. It's all different grants, all different, coming from different places that have to stay in their silo. It's we have a very unusual funding and financial situation always, because some grants, there are some years that they're flush, other years that we struggle. When I started 5 years ago, Section 8 was so tight. We didn't even Section 8 went many years without even getting raises because that budget was so tight. It's now flush with cash. Part of that is because of the CARES money we received from the government when the pandemic was going on. And we were able to utilize a lot of that for operating, and it saved us some money. It helped us purchase our building, that you all helped us buy. It just waxes and wanes. Rural development, there is no extra grants that go into this. It's just simply the rents. We do have 4 mortgages. They were built in phases. So we have 4 mortgages on that property. So we pay about $56,000 a year in mortgage, and we pay around $21,000 in pilot to the county for our form of taxes that we pay on it. So we do that. So it's a tight budget. One of the things we struggle with is snow removal. They're all ranch units, and they all have their own walkway up, which is lovely. And it was great during the pandemic because they have their own single entry. We didn't have to worry about anybody contaminating anybody else. However, it's a nightmare for snow removal. It costs us a fortune. Last year we paid $23,700 in snow removal, which was very cheap. In prior years, we have paid more than $40,000 in snow and ice removal. Ice is the other thing, because we have elderly people and people with disabilities. They have to get out there and make sure that we get the ice taken care of. Sometimes we may not have a lot of snow, but we've got ice. Very few companies want to deal with the sidewalks, and they'll do the parking lot. That's not an issue, but we even struggle getting people to bid on that project because it's so time consuming. So that is a cost that hits us, and that depends on the year. We don't quite know. There's just not a lot of room to give in the budgets, and these are your very low income residents. I know it says we serve 60 people right now, but remember, we've been doing this for 40 years, so we have served hundreds of residents, and we will continue to serve hundreds of residents going forward. One of the things I wanted to explain, oh, there we go. I don't know if
Do you want to go back to the first one? The photos?
That's okay, I'll skip through.
Please.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
I think we right-click.
So I think those are the roofs and the gutters, you can see some of the work that needs to be done and some of the trees on there. There's some of the sidewalks that need to be replaced. We have some people in wheelchairs and walkers and elderly, so that's a concern for us, for sure, a safety hazard for us. And then some painting, I just tried to get some pictures. And you have a lot more pictures in your packet, but these were just general pictures of the development. And you can see the landscaping. We do have a letter of support from the Village of Huntley. This is kind of in a key area in Huntley as you come into the village, either as you're coming in or going out, depending which way. We're just a couple blocks off the downtown area. It's a great location for the residents. It's close to the hospitals, it's close to shopping, hopefully eventually the train, so that is helpful there. There's those silos that I was trying to describe a little bit about our funding, about how that works. Here's some of the grants. We're 100% grant funded, so we do not have a mechanism. We don't raise funds. We're not a 501c3. We are a nonprofit government agency, and it's just like you wouldn't want, if you were to give us funds for this project, you would not want us to use that grant money for something else, and that's exactly, the way that all of our other funders feel as well. We can't mix those funds, for sure. The difference with our project and our project and like a tax credit project, because I know the goal is you want more affordable housing, we all do. I'm disappointed we can't be in front of you to do more development. Because that, of course, is needed. And the Housing Authority does do its part to try to help bring more affordable development into the county. We right now have 13 project-based developments that we support through giving them vouchers. So when tax credit projects come before you for funding and they go to IDA, oftentimes, most times, they need vouchers to help make that project work. And how they do that is we pay pretty close to market rate rent for our vouchers there. And they're serving other clients that are low. They have our voucher clients, and then they have other clients that are paying a more affordable rent. It's still several $100s more than what our rent is here at Green Trees. And our vouchers are helping to supplement that development because we are paying almost market rate rent. So that's what makes that work. This is not that development. We don't have that here. Our clients here are all, there's two, I think, that are at that 50, a little bit above that 50%, but the rest of them are extremely low. They could not afford, unless they had a voucher, they couldn't afford to live in those tax credit projects. They couldn't afford that. So we have it's a viable property that definitely needs help in keeping it sustainable and going forward in the future, and it serves clients that desperately need a place to live and would not have any place to go, including our project-based voucher developments. So it is critical, and but that does give us an issue sometimes with these projects, supporting them long range and doing these developments and major capital projects. The development has had a rent raise the last 4 out of 5 years. We have been raising the rent, but we have to do that gradually. $25 is, which is projected for this year, that's a lot to raise some of them. So we have to I can't raise them $100, that isn't gonna work. All of our rent raises have to be approved by rural development. Our budgets are approved by rural development, so they have to approve it. Anything we do with our reserves has to be approved by rural development. But that is kind of the difference, and I think it's critical in this kind of funding. While it's great to have new development, absolutely, but it's also important for these type of developments that are for our very low residents, to be able to sustain this development. I talked about the tax credit. That's pretty much what I have. We did split out the roofs. The roofs we applied for everything for the ERA2 funding, and then not knowing if we would be funded at all or how that would work, I applied for the roofs for home as well. And I also went for everything at CDBG. I was just gonna do all we could to do this.
Does anybody have any questions?
Do you have quotes on those repairs, roof, paint, sidewalks, all that?
We do not have quotes. We have estimates.
That's
So
what I
we have
meant,
a construction manager who works with the county, who's done our owner occupied rehab. He has a program, so he went out and measured, does all the measurement. It's prevailing wage. He took that into account because we didn't know what grant, if we were gonna get funding, we took prevailing wage. And so that's how he does that's how he's always done our houses and our public housing. Then we'll go out to bid. And if we were awarded any funding, then we'll go out to bid and then compare it with that. And depending on the funding available, that would be, whether we do it immediately in the spring or we have to wait till the fall for home.
Larry?
Yeah, thank you. In your timeline, you have the painting as part of this,
Yes.
and painting's not in the project description. And I didn't know if that is a formality that we should have it in there if we're gonna approve some money for it, that it says painting, or is it becomes a stumbling block down the road that you can't use it for painting?
It would not be, as long as we approve this, we would write it in the project description in the grant agreement.
Okay,
So we would include it there.
so
as part of the
here
budget.
isn't important as long as you have it on the other end. Okay.
So how much money are you asking for if we grant the roof and the whole thing?
We grant the roof and the whole thing, it's $615, I believe it is. I'll find my,
And this is part of those treasury funds?
Yes.
Is that right?
The request, yes.
Okay.
That means that actually the project can get up and running earlier as long as we have an environment completed, because we already got those
this is my
funds.
budget sheet.
Right, okay.
What was that number?
615,620.
How much was it? Sorry, Faith.
615,620.
Thanks.
That's everything. That was.
That's the whole thing. And what's the roof by itself?
Is
The 272?
272.
Oh, that was I was looking at 272.
272.
Okay, all right.
And then the landscaping is part of our match that we would cover out of our reserves.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
How many units did you say you had over there?
56.
It's a lot.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll see you again in a few minutes.
Okay.
You know, I built that in case you wanted to come back and ask more questions, or you wanted her to explain the breakout. I mean, it is the same project with a lesser scope. So we wrote that in to have the option, and, you may say, okay, I know what this is and I don't have any follow-up, but if you do want to, you have that option.
Thank you. Sure. Can you tell me again, so for the home, how much money do we?
We're looking at possibility of 550,000 only in 2024 new allocation.
Okay.
And then we're looking at 145,000 in swept funds from prior years. So this is what we're looking at for home.
Okay.
And here's her roof and gutter portion, the 272,710.
And the workforce housing has the,
Yeah, on my spreadsheet, there we go.
The 1.6.
1.6.
Okay.
Yep.
How long do we have to spend that $1.6 million?
Pretty much by the end of 2025.
Oh, so we have time,
There's
if we don't
time.
spend it all.
Definitely, and then we want to put our final reimbursements through by the end of January of 26.
Do we have applicants at each of our meetings this year? That's it, okay.
We do this meeting for home and for the ERA, and then in March, we have the 2 days, those are gonna be CDBG. And we'll have probably a little CV funding that was CARES Act or COVID related, but it's basically CDBG.
Separate than these
It'll be
two.
separate
Okay.
from this. And we may have other things come in, you know, as we have little dribs and drabs, or we've got maybe, you know, another grant, who, hey, who knows? But that's the intention, at least it's for January, March.
Got it.
Just when you think you got it, Alex, Hans will
Yeah.
put something to mention.
There's always a
Curveball.
Okay, if we could have Home of the Sparrow and Coleman Contractors. And do we have someone from Integrity also, a big group here?
So, you know, we usually don't have this for work for me, and this is like, you know, how things work. If it doesn't.
That's okay, last time I just sat here and clicked it. Apparently I wasn't controlling it. So.
Well, thank you for joining us. If you
Tell me
take a
next
couple
slide.
minutes to explain the scope of the project. and-
Absolutely. I'm back. Again, Kristen Miller, Grants Manager at Home of the Sparrow. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves too?
Yeah, Bobby Gattone, one of the landowners and developer on the project.
Brady Coleman, Coleman's Contractors, I'm a contractor.
All right, so thank you for hearing our pitch for ERA2 workforce housing to construct affordable workforce housing in Woodstock. Yep,
Just
that's
do
not
the-
gonna work.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
Whoa, oh boy. Who's involved? You just heard who's involved. So this is truly a partnership effort to construct 2 units here in Woodstock. Home of the Sparrow is the lead applicant, was in charge of the application submission. We've been involved in some of the planning and management here. And we will be taking over program-specific functions post-construction. However, we are partnering or proposing to partner with both Bobby and Brady here in their respective agencies as the parcel holders and construction experts to get this project up and running. So I'm going to turn it over to them to explain the project.
So I can start off. So this project would build 2 new construction, 4-bedroom, 1,550 square foot single-family homes side by side on South Street in Woodstock. We've owned this lot for a little while. I think it's always been our intention to make this a community-minded project on this lot. The fact is it's a beautiful wooded lot close to the public transportation, close to the square, right across the street from Emerson Park. So I think what we always imagined was trying to have something there where you could have, you know, someone raising a family there that usually wouldn't be able to afford to have a nice new construction home on a nice lot. I picture their kids playing there rather than being, you know, in a crowded, small development type situation. So trying to create that unique opportunity. This is the parcel here. It was essentially left over from a development from over 50 years ago. It has sat vacant for a long time. I can tell you when we first approached the city of Woodstock staff over the past year on different ideas for this property, they were anxious to see something go in on this lot. It's been vacant forever and it's in a really nice location. I've had experience, you know, directorships at different nonprofits around the county over the past 8 years, and have worked with Home of the Sparrow in a lot of different capacities. So it made a lot of sense for us to partner with them on this because I trust them as much as anybody else in the county to manage this well for the next 20 years, to sustain the project, to make sure it's really meeting a community need. And, you know, in full transparency, it's not really cost effective without the help of grant funding this is why people don't just build new construction affordable housing all over the place, right? It's not something that's really worthwhile to build on our own. So I'll let Brady take over with the construction timeline.
Yeah, we're ready to go as soon as spring breaks, you know, so we want to get started and get this thing up as soon as possible, given that you guys decide to support the project. So we'd like to get it finished for you as quickly as possible. The engineering plans, architectural drawings, we've got the basics ironed out. We just need to ensure, you know, get funding locked in before we pay for all those plans to be finalized. And then breaking ground, we have all of our contractors queued up and ready to get a green light from us. So given the funding timeline is kind of what we're basing this around. And, but we'll get started as soon as you let us. So this general timeline was just put together to give you a basic idea of like, if we start right now, if we got funding right now, we can meet these deadlines, no problem. So.
And just speaking on the Home of the Sparrow part here, so the transfer of ownership would then come to Home of the Sparrow in the form of a donation. So the land, both the land and the properties that are to be built would eventually be transferred to Home of the Sparrow for ownership and tax exemption through a donation of land. We are experienced in doing this. We've had several parcels of land donated to us, so we do know the proper channels and how to make that happen legally and within what we have to do as a 501c3. So we are confident that that's not going to be an issue at all. We've already kind of prepped the necessary parties to know that this is a possibility that will be coming down the pike later this year. And then just speaking quickly on the interior finishes, part of this agreement, as you saw in the budget that we proposed, has Home of the Sparrow putting in a little bit of skin in the game as well. So we will be responsible for funding some of the interior finishes like cabinetry, appliances, minor things like that to the insides of both of the units. We will be providing those through a combination of in-kind donations, volunteerism. You know, we can source things from our own thrift stores or donations that we receive from the community, as well as private grants and donations that we receive throughout the year. So we're in the process right now of applying for some of those private grants that'll fund some of that, and we do have a small commitment already from the Community Foundation to help support this project and get it going. So that's very positive. And then we would be marketing the units and renting them up and providing case management through the next 20 years. These will be something that we are definitely experienced in doing. And I think the timeline we provide in our application allows for a very conservative rent-up timeline. I anticipate the rent-up is going to be very quick, especially given how desirable these locations are. But again, we just wanted to be conservative, give ourselves, just in case there were any hiccups in the first part of this timeline in terms of the construction, which we don't anticipate, but again, just being conservative. You can see kind of an outline, a very brief outline of our project budget, which you would have received the full one in the application packet. Again, showing that Home of the Sparrow is ready to commit $48,000 towards those interior finishes, as well as match that we anticipate will be coming from property tax forbearance on both of these properties. So we can easily meet the 25% requirement for this grant. And just a quick review of our affordable housing program. We did revise our mission statement, so I did think I'd throw this slide in, just to be a little more specific about how we are working to reduce the prevalence of homelessness through creative strategies and community partnerships, such as this one, that are going to result in lasting self-sufficiency. I've highlighted our affordable housing program because this is where these units, are going to be integrated. Right now, as I said previously, that program has 26 units. This will bring us up to 28. And we have several in Woodstock, so this is a really easy integration for our maintenance team, for our case management staff. So this is gonna be a no-brainer for us. Our affordable housing program meets the need for affordable housing. As I said, right now, we have 26 active sites serving 70 clients, 34 adults and 36 children. It is a self-sufficiency program that includes case management and support throughout the duration and provides longer-term support for low-income households, prioritizing families. So again, naturally fits in with the vision that both Brady and Bobby have presented here. Case management, we believe, is going to be a critical component of overall program success. While it's not relevant to the construction, it is going to be relevant to making sure that these units fulfill the spirit of the ERA workforce housing program. So we do provide housing assistance, employment assistance. We have a specialized supported employment program that does help people who are currently employed. So part of this grant is that we're hoping to have families who are workforce eligible. We will be able to provide support to ensure they remain employed and advance in their employment as well. We've been very successful with that. And just as an indication from our fiscal year 23 of some of our outcomes here, we had 5 of 7 head of households increase their income from start to exit. We have an average length of stay of 3.6 years in the program as of right now, and 100% of our clients who exited last year went on to permanent housing destinations, which included 10 rentals without an ongoing subsidy and 2 ownerships without a subsidy. So those were extremely positive results. So in total, why this project? It's a quick and efficient spend of funds. All parties are clear on our deliverables. We're shovel ready. We have the capacity, each of us does, to see this project through to completion. We personally, Home of the Sparrows, the lead applicant, has experience managing federal funds through AHP, our affordable housing program, as well as the experience to carry it on in case management and maintain it for 20 years. It's a quick increase in the county's affordable housing stock. Again, it's going to be ready this year, so we can get people moved in and get them ready and on their way to success for the long term. And there are both short and long-term benefits to the county and its vulnerable populations.
Other questions? How much do you think each property will rent for? Like, what's the going rent for a 4-bedroom?
Yeah, so under what we'll be obligated to do this through with Home, kind of using their model, the maximum rent that we'll be able to charge for each unit is $1,625. But again, we actually are limited to no more than 30% of that household's income. So whichever is less. So if a household, and they have to obviously be meeting under 50% AMI.
Yeah. Okay.
So the maximum with 50% AMI is $1,625. But again, if they're making less than that, less than 50% AMI, or their income is lower, we'll take the lower of that, and it'll be no more than 30%.
Okay.
We've got a couple questions. How do you choose the families for these two as opposed to all the other properties that you have? I would imagine all the families want the brand new house.
Sure.
So how does that selection process work?
And I wish I had my case managers here to speak a little bit more on that, but we would basically start at our waiting list is obviously based on length of time you've been on there, as well as we take into account if you're fleeing domestic violence or you have some kind of exorbitant need that might kind of prioritize you. We take that into account as well. It works a little bit differently than the Continuum of Care's coordinated entry system. We kind of model it off of that. So we take into account how long you've been waiting, what your needs are. If you have children, obviously we're going to prioritize getting kiddos housed over maybe a single adult, things like that. So we'd be looking at who's kind of near the top of our waiting list, and then just who's ready based on logistics to go. I think we try to honor housing choice for our clients as much as possible. So that's the other piece of this, is that we will go to each family on our wait list and let them know where the unit is located. We don't necessarily need to tell them it's brand new, but we would tell them where it is. So if a family, let's say again, if they're living with family in Cary and they don't want to relocate to Woodstock, we'll honor that, and we'll wait and see if we have something that opens up like at our Fox River Grove units or at a Crystal Lake unit or something like that. So we're kind of balancing between prioritization based on need, client preference, and client choice to give them that autonomy. And then obviously maximizing the usage of these units. So we prioritize, at least a 4-person household. You know, we would want to make sure that every bedroom is filled.
Can I add to that?
Yeah,
Is the income factored in that decision to try to get as close to that 30 or 1625 as possible?
Not necessarily, no. Because these are not income generating for Home of the Sparrow. So we just want to make sure that you're under 50% AMI and that we're meeting the federal regulation. We're not going to prioritize you based on how much money you do or don't have, because again, it's not revenue generating for us. So if you are currently at 30% versus a 50% family, we're not going to prioritize the 50% family over the 30%. We may actually, if anything, we might prioritize the 30% family because your chances of getting anything affordable are much, much lower than someone who might be at 50%. So if anything, we might actually go the opposite way, to be honest.
I have a couple questions. I'm looking at this like we're doing a construction loan, okay, to Home of the Sparrow for the construction of these things.
Yes,
But you don't own the property.
correct.
Okay, so all those improvements, all that money, and nothing against you guys, it's improving the property that you don't own.
Correct.
Okay. Dick, would you do a loan like this?
Well,
With this structure?
there's certainly a way.
There's a way, but there has, normally we would want the property, or I would want the property be owned by
Sure, you would maybe,
own properties.
a guarantee from the non-owner.
Yeah,
Which
I
we do
was
have-
asking if there's a legal agreement in place.
Yes.
That this is gonna happen.
Yes, we've signed MOUs, all three of us, between all three parties. So those are binding that we've all signed off that agree that this project will be done and that these parcels and all constructed properties will be transferred to Home of the Sparrow at the completion. So yes, we've signed
Okay.
memoranda of understanding to that
We've
effect.
had the legal look at that.
Yes.
Yeah, it takes it easier than an entitlement, so.
Okay, just want to make sure that that was,
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I should mention too, because it didn't make it in the budget anywhere, but it's not technically a match for the grant, but the fact is that we purchased the parcels, we've put money into maintaining, we put money into the engineering already, redividing the parcels to make them buildable from what they were. So we've already invested a good amount of money into the lots. So you can kind of consider that a match from our end. It's already going into the project that won't be reimbursed by the grant.
I guess it's my banking background. You assume the worst is going to happen. because
Absolutely.
You've seen it occasionally.
Understand.
I had a question about the house. Do they have basements?
Yeah, we built that slab.
That you look cozy to me.
Larry, did you have?
Yeah, the city of Woodstock, their fee for putting up a house, I'm not thinking of the right word right now, but it used to be like $18,000. Impact fee, there you go.
Fire, schools, library.
Yeah, are they working with you at all on that, or are you paying that's coming out of this money?
We've had discussions with them, until this was finalized, they didn't want to talk exact numbers, but I know that they're really anxious to see a project like this happen.
You know what their impact fee is right now?
Yeah, I think it came out to like $8,000 a unit.
8?
Yeah, something like that.
Pardon?
I don't think that's bad.
Well, that isn't what it used to be, that's.
It's between 6 and 8.
So if that's not included in these grants, do you guys cover that or come back and ask for 12 more or 16 more?
That would be,
Yeah, we have no intention of coming back.
yeah, that would be covered within our budget. So.
Okay, does that include water and sewer connection fees?
Yeah, so
Yeah, that's all budgeted.
And do you have some type of estimate on each one of these lots, what their value would be vacant?
we actually had them on the market before applying for this project for $30,000 each, I believe is what we had them up for.
Yeah.
Did they sell? No.
But they're still on the market, yeah, they're on the market. They did, so.
Okay, so you do some
Marketing time.
subtracting on that, and the 685, you're looking at $200 a square foot or a little more for construction, or am I missing something?
What was the question? Sorry.
So if you take the value of the lots off and You get down to around 600,000 and you got 1,500 square feet, $200 a square foot, is that? for-
Yeah, that sounds about right. We budgeted this based on, actual bids from contractors, so I
Okay.
didn't throw like a generalized number at that, so.
And how much money is Home in the Sparrow putting into it to do the finish work, or
48,000.
48,000? And that's above and beyond what we have here?
Correct. That's not included in the request. That'll be what Home of the Sparrow contributes through, again, in-kind volunteerism, source donations, and private grants.
Yeah, and we had to get creative putting this together because we kept running up against subsidy limit and how we could build this affordably. And in order to make it so that, there was an option when we spoke with Hans and his team to have like an ongoing monthly fee for 5 years to Home of the Sparrow to reimburse. And we didn't want them to have to do that. So what, our thought was with their access to volunteers and donors, that these items we pulled out were intentional, that they could get them done a lot cheaper than we could. Potentially interior
Absolutely.
painting and things from donations.
Yeah.
That's why we chose those items to pull.
Okay. It seems like in the last few years, buying was cheaper than building. And I'm a little curious that Home in the Sparrow would be interested in going this direction.
Well, typically, as we just discussed, typically we don't dive into new construction. I think why we're interested in partnering in this project is because Brady and Bobby have the experience necessary to get the construction done. Again, too, with the parameters of this grant, we weren't allowed to acquire land or property. New construction was kind of our only option, and with their availability and willingness to work with us and having interest from the city of Woodstock as well to have this project happen, it makes a lot of sense for us to partner and do this.
So you couldn't purchase an already built house with this
Correct.
funds? No?
That's correct. Yeah, and we have, kind of, it's a nice partnership in that they have the experience, the capacity to get that construction done, which we certainly at Home of the Sparrow do not. However, we have the capacity and the infrastructure to take that affordability period of 20 years and keep these houses up and running and providing that case management. So it's a very natural fit for all parties involved to make this happen.
I got maybe a difficult one. Why not a larger unit there? I'm a big fan of single-family homes, but if you had the option, would you not be able to serve more families for the same amount of money over there?
So I can tell you, our first intention with this property was to do a multifamily affordable housing project there, and the city is not willing to do that. They want to keep this stone R1.
Got it. Makes sense.
Yeah, and frankly, a 4-bedroom, single-family home that's affordable and part of an affordable housing program is a rarity. Right now, this would be the first,
absolutely.
these would both be the first 4 bedrooms that we have in our. I can tell you, we have the 26 units that we have, our biggest is a 3-bedroom, it's probably Dietz that we just discussed.
Pretty nice.
We have a couple of 3 bedrooms, but we don't have a 4-bedroom. So these are gonna be, this is also, again, part of the reason to answer Commissioner Smith's question, why we would wanna get involved, is because if we have the opportunity now to go up to a 4-bedroom in this program, again, it opens up a lot of flexibility from that wait list of 80 people that we're dealing with, that now we've got 4 bedrooms. And under HUD regulations, without boring you, HUD has a lot of regulations over when it comes to bedrooms, how many kids you can squeeze into, put into the same bedroom based on age, gender, et cetera. So having a 4-bedroom for us is extremely beneficial, again, depending on family sizes and compositions, that it gives us that one extra space that maybe if grandma's living with you, or if, we have a family of 4 boys and there's that one surprise girl at the end, that she can have her own room. So that's, again, part of the reason why this was an enticing project for us to get involved in, is that now we can add some 4 bedrooms to our affordable housing stock.
So on your architectural drawing, it says optional 4-bedroom. That's not gonna be an option. It's gonna be a 4-bedroom. They're both gonna be 4 bedrooms.
Yeah, I think the option was an office or a bedroom, and for our purposes, a bedroom makes a lot
Gotcha.
more sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, then it's flexibility for you, that's a big factor.
Huge.
Okay, any other questions? Well, Well, thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much.
A great project. So as, we've got these separated out, but with the housing authority potentially splitting up their ask, can we hear the next set of presentations? And it looks like we're running behind schedule anyways on our timeline.
Yeah.
Just so we can maybe more easily split those two out. Is that an option, or do we need to make a decision?
You can wait until the end to deliberate for both grants and do your hearings
Yeah,
back to back, so.
Okay.
Habitat and Housing Authority here for the home.
Okay, so then if Habitat for Humanity County come up and give us a description of the scope of the project, and thank you for coming in.
Yeah, that's it. We'll make some presentations.
Well, I mean, it is a quick turnover for you as well regarding the hearing, so.
Well, and for those of you that don't know me, I'm Jerry Monica. I'm President and CEO of Habitat McHenry County. I've been in that position since 2011, and I've been coming here every year. So I feel like people know what we do. We are asking for a significant increase in the money that we normally request, but there is some logic behind that I'd like to go into. And I wanted to spend the first little bit of time sort of going through the history of the partnership between Habitat and McHenry County. We received our first allocation in 2006, and we've received awards all the way through 2023 uninterrupted. In 2010, we became McHenry County's sole resident SHOTO community housing development organization. So that's what we are. We are a development organization. We develop affordable housing in this county. And that designation, as far as I know, is still in place. I know we're a SHOTO. I think we're the only resident SHOTO here. The total of the home awards has been approximately $2 million. Some of our records back from the early 2000s were not great, but it looks like around $2 million, with our annual average award being around $140,000. So in the 18-year partnership, we have leveraged the home money to build 66 houses here in the county. And that is providing affordable housing, permanent housing for over 250 individuals that, no, they weren't homeless, but they were definitely stressed and at risk of becoming homeless. So I feel in some cases we have prevented some homelessness, although we're not really a homeless person solution. One thing I am very proud of, 9 of our partner families were able to save enough money to send kids to college, 13 college students, and that's a great achievement. So, you know, when we do our dedications and I hand the keys over to the parents, I always say to them, well, I'm helping you, but the one that we're really after is this little guy sitting here. So when I hear the fact that they've grown up and the parents have been able to save enough money through the housing program that we were able to, the opportunity that they took advantage of, it was not a gift, obviously, they paid for that house, but they were able to have enough money to save and send those kids to college. So now they're not going to go through what these people have gone through with the, you know, couch surfing and moving every other year and having their kids go to different schools and all that bad stuff that goes on when you're living in housing that you can't afford. Every one of the houses that we've built remain in the affordable housing inventory, and the vast majority of the houses that we sold to the original homeowners are still in the possession of those homeowners. So there's been very little turnover of home ownership. Although I will say that some of our existing mortgages now, this is our 30th year, so those first few mortgages are now starting to get paid off. So in 2024, 4 more houses will become mortgage free. What an accomplishment to have that mortgage burning party. So that's going to happen this year. So as I said, And what I wanted to talk about is how the money that we get from the county is actually an investment that you're making. This is not transactional. And if you, I brought enough copies for everyone. I wasn't sure if this was going to get through or not, but thank you. When you get a chance to go through this, you'll see our annual profit and loss statement. That's not audited yet, but the two items that I wanted to bring to your attention, I've highlighted. And one is a revenue item, and that is our mortgage sales for 2023. And that was almost $600,000, $599,000. And then the corresponding expense category was the cost of the homes transferred. And like I mentioned below, 2023 was kind of a bad year for this comparison with the rising interest rates and the super high raw material costs. But the cost to build those houses last year was $729,000. So essentially, our construction program is self-sustaining. Last year, not quite, we covered about 82% of our cost. But what that means to you is the money that you granted in 2022 that we used in the 2023 program, 82% of that money is going to be available to be recycled. So that's where this investment comes in. And with all due respect to the previous presenter, we have the capability to build affordable housing in a great scale. There's no limit. Money is not the limit for us when we have this mortgage model that we use. The more that we build, the more that we're able to build. As long as our construction costs are being covered by that first mortgage, we are not losing any money on these houses. These are houses that we're just putting in inventory, and it's essentially free for us. So again, and I go into the specific case of the home allocation. We got $206,000, 82% of that, or almost $170,000 is going to be available to help us build our 2024 projects. And if you can extend that logic and say that 82% is going to hold again this year, and I think we're going to do a little bit better. Another 142 is going to come back out of that original 206. So the cascading effect of that money, the impact will still be there well into the 2030s, so before it's consumed. So and then I sort of go into my little blue sky mode and just say, imagine what we could do with a large allocation such as a $400,000 allocation. That's not enough to get to the level that I think we could easily get to, and that's to build 40 or 50 houses a year, but it is a good test. I can't guarantee how many houses I'm going to build with that 400,000, 4 for sure. That I will guarantee, but this should steamroll into, I would whisper the number, 15 to 20 houses easily. This money will still be around in 2050. So this is truly an investment. This is not a transaction. This isn't a one and done. So if you skip back to past the P&L to how that we're doing this, in our fiscal 2015, we made a choice to abandon the way we were writing our mortgages before. Habitat historically, and a lot of the local affiliates still do it this way. They write and hold a 30-year mortgage. So it didn't take me long to understand and realize that that is not a sustainable model. When you're putting $165,000 to $180,000 into construction cost, and then you issue that 30-year mortgage that's affordable, so someone's paying maybe $300 a month. You're at the end of year one, you're out that construction cost, and you've only made up around $3,500. So you're basically out a big chunk of money with every single house you build. And I know in our case, we didn't have the financial wherewithal to ever do any more than 2 houses. And that's borne out in our history. In the first 15 years, we were able to build about 20 houses, 22 houses, I think is the number. And in the 15 years since, going into this year, by the end of this year, we will completed our 80th house. So this mortgage model has worked, it is working, and we are approaching sustainability. And I will say that 82% is not quite right, because in their infinite wisdom, the IRS forces us to impute a value of the actual property that we have. And the properties that we're building on were donation properties. So we didn't pay anything for those, but we have to carry a cost of $20,000. So if you consider that we finished 4 houses in 2023, that's $80,000 less in costs that I'm claiming up there that we really didn't incur. So our money recovery is a lot better than 82% in 2023. So then when you go, if you look at the page, how's it done, and you run through, you can sort of see the math on the way that we used to build under the old model and then our new model. So much has not really changed. There's only one real big change, and that is that our homeowners now are financed in the commercial banking industry. We have agreements with 3 different banks, local banks that we use. And our stipulation, of course, is that these are affordable first mortgages, right? It's no more than 30%, just like you've heard all day long. That includes principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So no more than 30% of the monthly gross goes to our payment. We do, however, we sell the houses at appraised price, right? We want to support the neighborhoods that these houses are going into. We don't want greater property values. So to make up the gap between what they can afford and what the house is worth, we issue, Habitat McHenry still does issue a silent second mortgage. It sits on the property. They don't pay on it. Once they get to the end of that mortgage, that first mortgage gets paid off, it's forgiven in its entirety. If they do anything, like if they did a refinance, or if they sold the house, or if they rented it out, that's what we call a triggering event, and it would trigger that second mortgage, and it would become due, and they would have to pay on that as part of the refinance or the sale. We'd be reimbursed for that. So they don't pay on that, and these houses stay affordable. And the part that's good for us is, instead of waiting 30 years to recover all of the money that we put into the house, we get that at close now through the commercial bank. The bank gives us a check for that first mortgage. There's that $165,000 check. It goes right back out to the next project. And we build it, and we sell it, and we reuse as much as we can. So it's a great model. It's still not very widely, for whatever reason, not widely used at Habitat. There's a couple of large affiliates that do that. The last page in here is how far can we take this program? And that sort of speaks to our capability and what we're able to do. We can build 4-bedroom houses affordably. We have experience in doing that. We build 3-bedroom houses. Our construction costs are extremely low because of using so much volunteer labor and gift in kind that we get, the donations we get from our national partners. I think in 2023, our cost per square foot was around $150. So it's not $200 like you see in commercial building, commercial construction. So again, my personal goal of, bucket list item is to get to 40 houses a year, and we can do it. We can do it. There is precedent for such large scale production at Habitat. We have an affiliate in Twin Cities. It's called Twin Cities Habitat, Minneapolis, St. Paul, so not a huge market. They were one of the first people to adopt this third-party mortgage model, and it became so successful for them and they've grown so fast that they have established subsidiary construction companies, a real estate company, and a mortgage company. They are their own CDFI. They have a CDFI that lends the construction people money, and that affiliate is building 100 houses per year in a cold weather climate on top of everything else. So there are issues, and honestly, if we were to get this grant and we were able to use this money the way I'm describing, money is not the issue. does not become an issue for us. It's really finding suitable properties. We've got our eye on a few properties that could support, a habitat kind of neighborhood, and they're in desirable, they're not just farm fields out in, west of Marengo, south of Harvard where no one can get to. There's lots available, large lots available on Crystal Lake and in Woodstock that we've looked at in the past, and we're not ready to pull a trigger on something like that, but we certainly could do that if we can justify the cost. It's availability of volunteers, and surprisingly, it's also the availability of applicants. When I first started here in 2011, I just figured out, that's when we were doing 0% mortgages that were 30% of their income. I thought people would be lined up around the corner to get these houses. It has not been the case. And I think part of it is the message that we were using as we tried to market. I think it was coming off as saying, hey, if you're poor, we have a house for you. So who wants to raise their hand and say, I'm poor? So now, over the last couple of years, we've really stressed on the whole affordability factor. If you need a house that's only 30% of your income so that you have money to spend and save for your retirement and put your kids through college, come and see us. And that seems to resonate a little more strongly with across the swath of income that we try to serve. And we've gotten some more highly qualified homeowners. We're committed to serving 30 to 80%, but at 30%, it's hard to do that all the time because those are people that can really only afford about a $300 a month mortgage payment, and it's very hard for us to cover construction costs with someone who's bringing us $75,000 or $80,000. But those people need our help, and I'm committed to serving them. So what we try to do is work with people who are maybe 50 or 60% that can afford a full mortgage, and that helps us to semi-subsidize being able to serve in the lower income range. So we are still committed to that. We'll always serve those people, and I think our program is perfectly suited to do that. So. In terms of staffing, obviously we would have to staff up to get to any kind of level like that. We've been kind of, I don't want to say stuck, but we've been producing 4 houses a year for the last 3 or 4 years, ever since COVID, when we had to shut down, and it kind of knocked away a little bit of our momentum, and we're slowly getting that back. But our current staff, we can do 4 houses falling out of bed in the morning, so there's not going to be any issue with working this. The issue becomes when we start to recycle this wildly and we can start to build incrementally, we need to staff up. We would need to staff up. And I will say that in my 2024 budget, that is not quite approved by my board yet, but we have a construction expansion of 2 head count. So we are thinking that with some funding, we will be ready to hire right away, and I can make that fit in the existing budget. So staffing shouldn't be an issue for us either. You may have heard that we received 2 very large repair grants from IDA to repair affordable housing, homeowner occupied housing in the county. That total is close to $1 million. And we need to get that all spent between now and the end of 2025. So we've got some dedicated people that are going to be managing repairs for us. So that, we're looking at that as a whole separate piece of our business, our primary construction and then the repair business. So we share a few resources, but not really. More of the senior management and some project managers, but the actual construction staff are separate. So I close by saying that receiving a $400,000 allocation would allow us to expedite our build schedule, possibly in 2024, depending on when this contract would be available to us. If we got that maybe a little bit ahead of October, that would allow us to start getting some foundations in the ground, which is huge. And we wanted to do that this year, but the money came in late and then the weather changed and we couldn't pour concrete. So if we can get something in the ground in the fall, we can work through the winter. I mean, it's not real popular to do siding in February, but we've done it.
Winter conditions.
That's right.
Word.
But if we miss that window, if we miss that fall window to get those foundations in the ground, that delays everything until March, until they can get back in the ground and the cement plant, the concrete plants open back up. So it'd be huge for us, and that's how we would be able to accelerate our build schedule.
To me, winter conditions are twice as much money for half the work.
You know, I'll never forget it. This is a horrible story. It was, I think it was one of the houses we were doing in Marengo, and I barely was still wet behind the ears, executive director, and I was out at the build site sort of watching things. They wouldn't let me build because, you know, I'm an office guy. But anyway, this guy was hanging siding, and we were using aluminum siding then, and he cut his hand. And I mean, he cut his hand. You could almost see the bone, but it was so cold out. He looked at it and goes, "That should be bleeding." And it wasn't because it was so cold. So that's cold weather work. So that's what I have. I sure would like us to do this. This is a great opportunity to really commit to the program, to really fight affordable housing. It would be the affordable housing crisis. It'd be great someday to say, someone asked about affordable housing and we would say, well, we don't have that issue here. You know, everybody's living in houses they can afford. Yes?
This is more just, I'm curious now. So the $1 million that you're gonna get to do repairs, do you do repairs on the existing homes that people purchase from you already?
Those are eligible, but it's anybody in the county who meets the financial criteria of low to moderate income. There's an application process, just like our homeownership application process.
Okay, cool. I didn't realize that you had that division as well.
You know, it's always been something we've done. We've done a lot of veteran repairs. We have a separate pot of money even within the repair business that is earmarked for veterans repairs, and we're one of the largest veterans repair organizations inside of Habitat. We've been doing that since 2012 as well, so, you know.
Super good to know.
It dawned on me that it's just not how many houses we're building, it's how many people are we helping.
Yeah.
And we can help a lot of people with repairs. And if we can keep someone in their house and keep it from being condemned, I mean, it doesn't make sense for me to build one house when two of them get condemned, you know, that's a net loss, right? So if you fix those two and keep those people in those houses that are typically close to being paid for, I mean, we have a pretty old housing stock in this county. There's a lot of 50 to 60 to 70-year-old houses and older, depending on where you're at. So to be able to keep people in those houses and not force them to move or let them age in place, that's a win for us, and those are people that we're helping. So
I got some balance sheet questions. Oh, were you done?
Yeah.
Damn it. So, sorry. Some people just don't know when they're not called.
left mine in my pocket, back in my coat.
Yeah, it should. Balance sheet. Presume when you're selling a mortgage to a third party, which is a great idea, those have to be conforming mortgages, presume. Do you have any non-conforming mortgages that you're holding that, okay, good.
So when we made this choice to move to the third-party mortgage model. Now, we're not selling mortgages, though they're issuing first mortgages to our present construction, but we did have this this bundle of all the previous mortgages before we made that switch in 2015, so it was 20 years.
That's kind of what I'm asking.
20 or 30, so we went and we did sell those mortgages outright to the bank. So, and it really was in recognition of our mission, and our mission isn't managing mortgages, and frankly, we were pretty terrible at it. A lot of Habitat affiliates run 30 to 40% delinquency, and that really screws up the math on this, how do you do it page. That math assumes that all your mortgages are current, and when you're not getting all your mortgage money per month, it kills your cash flow. So I was very happy to get out of that business and leave it to the experts to manage those mortgages.
I have a question. Jerry, you mentioned one of the limitation factors is obviously, staffing, but also the availability of vacant lots. Do you have an inventory of vacant lots right now ready to be built on?
We do,
How many
and,
lots do you have?
and the lots that are in this ask, this 400,000, are 4 of those lots. So we have, I think, the goal back in the day was to have 3 years of lots available to us, but with the growth that we're projecting, we wouldn't have that. And frankly, some of the lots we have, when I was, again, still sort of young and naive, someone came to me and said, "Gee, I got a free lot for you." I'm like, "All right, I'll take it." And then you go out and look at it, and it's, in the springtime, it's under 3 feet of water, or else it's on a hill that you can't build on, or it's too small, or whatever. So we've got some lots in our inventory that we need to get rid of. And we are going to do that, and now we're a little more selective about what we accept. I think I've turned down the last 4 lots that have been offered to us, and I feel like an ingrate when I do that, when someone says, "Hey, I got lots for you," and I look at them and I have to say I can't take those lots. They're like, "Why? What's wrong with my lot?" So
How many buildable lots do you have ready to go right now?
Well, buildable lots, easily we have 8 or 9 scattered site ones that we could build on, and there's a number of other ones that we would need to combine into a single parcel. There's been some changes in some of the unincorporated areas where you have to do well and septic, and they've changed some of the rules for septic fields. So on a standard quarter-acre lot, it's hard. That's where it becomes hard to build anything more than a 3-bedroom house. You try to put a 4-bedroom on a quarter-acre septic lot, and it's not able to be done. So we have some lots that we would combine and turn into single lots.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
A lot of numbers to go through.
Yeah.
Well, like I say, and I'll close by saying, we have the capability, we can do this, we have done this. This is what we do, is affordable housing. That's our mission, that's all we do. We don't do any rental, we don't do vouchering, we don't do any of that kind of stuff. This is, build and get people permanent housing. And, I live in this county too, and the more improved properties there are, the better it is for us all. It potentially would lower our property taxes to have people staying here permanently and putting down their roots and spending their money here and paying their property taxes here. So I do have a little bit of a vested interest in seeing this be successful, as do all of us who live here. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay, Kim, if you'd like to rejoin us to go over the second part of the Green Tree apartment rehab.
So the second part is the same project with just the roofs pulled out for home. Doing the roofs to the home grant. There's 14 roofs and gutters through the home grant for $272,000 and change. Same project, just I wasn't sure whether or not how the funding was going to work, so I applied that for the home.
Okay.
Do you see those as the most urgent, the most important of all the?
The roofs, because it's also affecting our insurance, now they're saying that, they're old and they're not gonna cover them to the, their value is decreased so much. So yes, that's the most urgent. Which then again, the home makes it more difficult because home we're not gonna get till the fall, so that pushes that off a little bit, but it is the most urgent, and the concrete for sure.
I imagine the insurance company would also like to see those trees taken
Yes.
care of.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. Any further questions?
Well, I wrote down the roof somewhere and I lost track of it.
272, right?
Yes, that's what I got.
Yeah.
And then the remainder,
272 was for the roof
For the
Yes.
roof.
and the gutters.
And the full project was 615,
620.
including the roof.
Including the roof.
Including the roof.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they'd be able to get the money faster
if we split it.
if we don't split it.
If we don't
Am I
split
right?
it.
If we don't split, the money comes faster. Am I right?
Because that's, the treasury's
Yeah,
already here.
treasury money is here already.
Yeah.
And the home cannot go towards any of the other repairs, that has to only be for, is that,
It's not that it couldn't, but it's what they applied.
Yeah, that's what they applied for.
We didn't want to take the whole home money, so.
Is there one?
well, I was just thinking if the ERA could go towards the roof, because that's a sooner funding, and you have other needs that could go under the home later, it's just a thought. But that wasn't the application, so just thinking out loud.
Okay, I thought maybe we'd have some more questions for you on that second part, but I think if there aren't any more questions, we can move into our allocation and deliberation on that.
Mr. Stingman wasn't sure if the.
Oh, that's fine.
So we should probably start with 5.1 in the ERA to workforce housing. There we go. So I don't know if we've ever seen that we've had, less ask of what we have available, so.
To that effect, I was gonna ask, I mean, we have enough money to fund both
Yeah,
projects.
that makes
We
sense.
like them, why don't we fund both projects?
Yeah.
Right.
And
Right.
Doing so, you'd have enough money to fund the third project, home funds. It's only applications we've received.
Right, are we just gonna sit on them, you know?
Yeah. I mean, they've got swept ahead.
Should we just,
Is that pretty much everybody's feelings? To completely fund each project? So 684, 508 for Home of the Sparrow, build out for 2 brand new units.
I have a question for Hans then.
Okay, go.
How long do we have to allocate the rest of the funding?
So
For the ER2?
for ERA two, I would recommend doing that probably by the summer. So probably the summer hearings, but that would be the only thing on that one. With CDBG hearings, you don't want to mix that in, there's too much going on.
Okay, so if there was another request that came in, there's funds to be used?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, and I think we will.
I guess
Larry?
the new construction things, that just sort of bothers me that we'd be getting into something like that with all that partnership with Home and the Sparrow and the contractor and et cetera. I'm not saying it's a wrong program, it just seems like another direction that Home and the Sparrow's going. And they've got scattered housing, 4 flats, different things going on. So it concerns me. I'll leave it at that, I guess.
Well, I see it as, this, how, they can't purchase land as Home of the Sparrow with this grant, am I right?
Correct.
So partnering with this, with the 2
LLCs.
LLCs that we call them, okay, they can make it work for them. right? Is that, and that's legally to do that.
It would look a lot like one of your bigger housing projects, like Taylor Place in McHenry.
Right.
Where there's a combination of a nonprofit and a developer.
Yeah, so we've done it before then, sort of.
Well, is the concern that apparently a private company is benefiting somehow?
Somewhat, but the unknown is, we got it'll be over $700,000 in 2 units. It seems like we could help more people taking a different route at some point. This money doesn't have to be spent today, right? I mean, and there's gonna be other applicants at some point down the road. I don't know what our time limit is on it.
I think we're talking maybe July hearings,
Yeah, not-
based on what.
Not a whole year even.
What was this on?
We could always issue another funding notice and have a long application period and come back to the commission in July.
I guess that would be it, the $700,000 for 2 units. But I know the new units are 4 bedrooms, so there's obviously some good points to it too.
I don't disagree at all on the end. In terms of what it costs to buy a house like that, it's not a lot, but again, that's not really the mission, is it?
Pardon?
The mission isn't to enhance the financial status of anybody. I think that's where you're going.
You know, I don't care if somebody makes a buck on it. And I do think that it's probably gonna be that's case on it, and more power to somebody to make $1, and that's their time and efforts.
That's a lot of dollars, though.
Pardon?
That's a lot of dollars.
I think in the end run is just being 2 units for that much money. It seems like those funds could be used in a better, not that we have an application in front of us, and that is an issue. It's an unfortunate issue that we don't have another place application to, so we could balance, is this, this much money for whatever project or against this project? We don't have that, so it's sort of a yes or no right now, and that's part of a bother for me too. I did hear that, and reasonably so, do we let the money sit? Well, that's not really our purpose either, so.
And if we don't spend it, it goes away.
If it's not spent by like January 2026, then we would have to issue it back.
Right.
Or the other thing that we could do in the meantime is if we're in a calamity situation, we could use those rental assistance. So we obviously wouldn't want to give back money if we don't have to.
Right.
But, I think this is, anytime that we have housing money, it's a good opportunity for us. Fortunately, we don't have the applications. Doesn't mean we can't look for more,
What is the status quo on something like this? You said we've done this before.
Well, we've done it in a bigger, where do you live?
Right now, Lakemore. I grew up in Marengo.
Okay, well, do you know that housing project across from St. Mary Church in Henry? That's what I'm thinking of, right?
That's ideal.
Think
Yeah.
so? Okay.
It's well, you explain what it is.
It's Pearl Street Commons, I think is the one you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's maybe how many units, like 20 or so. I don't
I'm
know.
rusty on that one. It's not, I don't think it's quite 20, is it?
It's like
Dozen more or
25,
less,
like
but
2
yeah.
stories. It's
Yeah.
a couple
Okay.
stories.
That's a lot more bang for the buck than 2 single family.
Yeah, but I mean, it costs a lot more than that too.
That one received tax credits. At the time, it was around $7 million,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So there was added tax credits. There was a home investment of about $250,000.
Right.
The reason I know the numbers is actually we won an award for that one. It's sitting in my office
Oh,
right
okay.
now. That's our Grammy. We got the Grammy for that one. So.
But that's kind of the role that we've done before, is these bigger projects.
Right.
Where the county puts money in and then, so this is obviously a smaller project. I'm in favor of this project because the money's here and the houses, they don't ever get 4-bedroom houses. And it's affordable and we need affordable housing. Why put a brake on it when they want 2 more houses? So that's my thought.
I also think with the current inventory of existing homes, that if we funding the project would give the availability to larger families that are on that wait list, that are
Right.
probably on the wait list longer, right? Am
Because
I
they're
right?
bigger,
Then, right.
I'm okay with the project as long as you guys are okay with the structure of it and with the different entities involved.
The structure is eligible when I'm looking at the requested amount. That's basically the subsidy limit is ×2 for a 4-bedroom unit, which, you know, is 342,000 or so. So that structure works because the developer fee can be paid out of the funds to the developer. So those are all things that are common in home projects and tax credit projects and things like that. So those are things that are eligible.
Is there anybody that would like to make a motion to either fully fund both projects or to only fund one project?
Let me try this. I'll make a motion, we fund Green Trees Rehab, McHenry County Housing Authority in the amount of $615,620 from available ERA2 funds.
I'll second it.
Okay. Should I get a roll call?
Oh, hang on just a second. Okay, Von Bergen,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Hausman,
Yes.
Brammer,
Yes.
Rathcorn,
Yes.
Adamson,
Yes.
Lamonte,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Pietrosa.
Yes.
That was a good idea, break it up.
I would like to make a motion that we fully fund Home Sparrow along with the LLCs for the full amount of $684,508.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Rossman seconds.
All right, let's do this again. Von Bergen,
Yes.
Smith,
No.
Hausman,
Yes.
Brammer,
Yes.
Rathcorn,
Yes.
Adamson,
Yes.
Lamonte,
Yes.
Moore,
No.
Pietrosa.
Yes.
So majority is yes.
Thank you, congratulations.
Do we have to fill these out?
Well, I think the thought was that we would do those rankings, but then the discussion turned to, we've got enough money to fund it,
Yeah.
so we sort of.
It'd be good if we didn't have enough money.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think it's an idea to get an idea of what we can CDBG.
Oh, yeah, when we don't have enough money.
I promise I'll get it back.
We've got one more vote here.
Do I turn this thing out to go to the back?
Yes. Okay.
So can you scroll up? Well,
Yeah, I want to see how much money they're out of.
can you scroll up a little bit, please, Dave?
This was the,
That's the 550 plus the,
you mean down, right?
I'm sorry.
Bottom, yeah, I
Down.
gotcha. I realized what you meant then.
145 suite.
Okay, but we're
So we
taking
could take the housing
we're
authority out
taking
of
the
there.
272 back off there, right?
Yep, we can take this off.
Take that out.
Okay, that's okay.
It's,
So now,
How long
if
does,
it's up for discussion, I'm comfortable with those projects.
yeah, I have a question for Hans. How long do they have Habitat plan to spend that 400,000?
Oh, they would have quite a bit of time on that. Now, one thing I'll point out is, Mr. Monica had requested if we had any earlier funds, and we do, we have 145,000. So if you were to award this, the thought may be to allocate that part out for sure, and then whatever part you wanted to in full. We have, what is it, typically, we like the obligation in about 2 years and spending in about 4 years, from October 1st of this year.
So I don't think there'd be any issue with them spending that.
They should have an issue.
Okay.
so we would have to separately both on the 45 and the 550? Are there different timelines for spending?
So yes, for the earlier funds that we have there, we're looking at, I think it's 21, 22, and 23. So
So those
the
need to
home
get.
programs have like about a total of 8 years to spend funds.
Okay.
The thought would probably be better to allocate that older money out and then have them move along with that sooner. So as they're spending, they would be spending the earlier funds then, sort of first in, first out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You want 2 separate motions to make that clean?
I would recommend making one motion and just say that you would allocate the.
Give direction.
Just make it a motion.
The balance in 24 funds.
Just to be, there's 145 for balance, well, and so we're gonna subtract that from the 400 then?
Correct.
Okay.
And just have it 2 program years. Is that what we're?
Yes, so it would be prior to, so it'd be years 21 to 23, total 145. And then year 24 would have to be 255 if you wanted to fund.
Right. Who's gonna make that motion?
Anybody interested in?
I'll make that motion.
That motion, I second that.
Full fund Habitat for Humanity, the full funding, using 145,000 from the previous year's 23 funding, and the rest from the 24 funding.
Okay, second?
Second.
All right. Von Bergen,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Hausman,
Yes.
Brammer,
Yes.
Rathcorn,
Yes.
Adamson,
Yes.
Amorte,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Pietrosa.
Yes.
11 o'clock, right on, right?
I like that 11 o'clock.
I think we'll make it. Great, well, thank you.
I'm sorry, but I have to leave
Everyone?
at 11. I'm not rushing anybody, I just, another appointment that I missed on Monday.
It's like going outside.
Well, are there any member comments or any other business announcements?
I have a comment.
Okay.
I don't know who reviews our meetings. I know who reviews bank board meetings. And a split vote like this demonstrates conversation, deliberation, demonstrates that it's not a rubber stamp.
Right.
And I think it's a healthy thing that we didn't vote unanimously.
Okay.
I agree, Dick, that's a good comment, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't,
I'll introduce you to some bank examiners someday.
I don't mind, and I don't mind losing once in a while as long as everybody's paying attention.
That was a tough one.
That's the important thing.
Yeah, wait till March.
What are the dates?
The 12th and 13th.
That was a difficult.
We did,
That was part of that motion.
that last one.
Oh, not him.
The one.
No,
we
I
split
mean,
them
oh yeah, why didn't I think there was something else?
because there was, we
on there.
Yeah, there was, it went away. Voted to-
Oh, yeah, 'cause we thought, okay. I'm like, in my head, I was thinking, we have 3 things.
I apologize for my rushing out, but
You want to do a motion to adjourn on your way out?
a motion to adjourn.
All right. All's in favor?
Bye.